Look, here's the windmill. I didn't think we were that close. This had always been one of George's favourite sights. Can we stop? I knew you were going to ask that. No, you didn't. Well, you always ask. Tessa smiled as she slowed the car. But I don't mind. If any place could still truly be described as being in the middle of nowhere, then it was Long Cross. Halfway along the north coast of Cornwall, 4 miles from the nearest village, which wasn't even really a village, perching defiantly on the side of a cliff. George and Tessa had found it in an old book when they were staying in another B&B in Brighton the previous year. Back at the flat, George had been surprised to see the book poking boldly out of her travel bag. "You can't just take things," he protested. "Yes, you can." "What if someone sees?" "Oh, George, what do you think's going to happen?" The objection to her spontaneity didn't prevent him from browsing in the book. "I bet you'll find they're all still there," Tessa had said one evening as he flicked through its yellowing pages. "Tessa, it cost 99p, look." He showed her the back cover, and then the flyleaf that stated the book's date of publication as 1971. "I'll prove it to you. Go on, pick one." He searched for the most antiquated photograph he could find. "Long Cross Victorian Country House and Gardens. Long Cross offers unparalleled views over the Atlantic and is ideally situated for those who enjoy walks along Cornwall's splendid coastal paths." "Oh, let's go there." Tessa bounced up and down on her knees. 3 days later, she announced that she had telephoned Long Cross and booked them in for a long weekend. The place was still open for business, now run by a couple who had renovated the garden and installed central heating. George could imagine the conversation. Tessa would talk to anybody at great length without fear. But then, she did most things without fear. They had been to Long Cross twice. The first time had been a shared adventure, discovering the house with its forbidding beauty. The second visit coincided with their 6-month anniversary. George had accepted Tessa would never have agreed to a third visit, were it not for the fact she was going away. The first hint of the night had begun to spread across the sky. A nearly full moon was visible in the upper left corner of the windscreen. Within 5 minutes they saw Long Cross up ahead, the only geometry visible against a horizon broken with the crinkle of hawthorn hedges. They rounded the corner into the car park and pulled up in front of the glass-fronted porch. They went through the usual procedure for checking in, dumped their bags, then hurried outside again down to the garden. "It's freezing!" George put his arm around Tessa. She responded with hers. They pressed themselves together. George turned to her. She kissed him. "Come on, then." Still holding him tightly, she ran them both to the entrance. The gate squeaked open, and they passed within. Immediately she let go of him and ran off down the path, before disappearing around a corner. He chased after her. George headed for the bottom end of the garden, which backed onto the cliff's edge. There was a little turret in one corner with a spiral staircase. You could climb it and look out over the ocean. He always felt deliciously safe leaning out over the sea, but with the thick stone wall pressed against his chest, holding him up against the wind. "You're dead!" Tessa shouted. George nearly fell to the ground as she leapt on his back from behind. "You weren't being very careful, were you?" she giggled. They left the turret and walked slowly in silence round the rest of the garden's perimeter, finally exiting through the gate. It was dark now. They hurried to the lights and warmth of the hotel. "It's hard to believe that my name is Steve and yours is Matilda, so clear are the signs that you're made of wine and I'm made of tiddly-dough." The old man at the table behind them broke down laughing as he finished his incomprehensible sea shanty. "Do you want to eat?" asked George. But Tessa was turned away. When she was smiling, lost in thought, he felt like he never wanted to be with anyone else. She was only 22. He knew how much she wanted to go to America. He wasn't looking forward to being apart from her for a year. George went to the bar, and when he returned, Tessa was chatting happily to the old man about his dog and its genealogy. The dog had its black paws on her lap and was licking her face. "Oh, he like you, missy. Very keen on you, he is." The old man laughed and rolled himself another cigarette. "He's like that, though. You want to watch him. That's how he started with me. And now we stuck with one another. Anyways, we be celebrating our anniversary." "Anniversary?" George somewhat self-consciously joined the conversation.
"Oh, aye."
He pulled on his cigarette.
"I'm never likely to forget. September is the time of the wash. That's where we found each other."
"What's the wash?" Tessa asked.
"The wash? You not heard of the wash?"
He carried on chuckling.
"The sea goes out further than is usual, and stays out longer than is usual too. Then it comes rushing back, all in one go."
"I've never heard of that," said George incredulously.
"I don't suppose you would have, young sir. I don't think there's much science in the wash."
"What do you mean?" Tessa was intrigued.
"Wash is more about magic than science. It's the fog as well. That fog ain't a natural fog. It's all that's left of the sea when it goes. It comes down, and if you get caught in it, you're well and truly lost."
"What were you doing walking in it if it's so easy to get lost?" asked Tessa, never shy about getting straight to the point.
"Well, missy, if you walk long enough, you come out the other side of that fog bank. And the other side of it is the most beautiful thing I ever seen. If I was a painter, I wouldn't bother with no landscapes or nuddy woman. I'd spend every minute I could painting that scene until the water came galloping back."
"Oh, what was so beautiful?" Tessa asked. The old man chuckled again, but there was a different quality to his laughter this time.
"You'd have to see it for yourself to know that."
He sat back in his seat, his wrinkled face suddenly unreadable. Later, sometime in the night, George awoke. It was very dark in the big room. He could hear the slow in and out of the sea, but it seemed a long way away. He could just discern the pale oval of Tessa's face. Asleep, she looked even younger. He almost grabbed hold of her shoulders and woke her and asked her to marry him. But he told himself not to be stupid, and he lay in the darkness for a while before sleep found him again. "Well, what would you like to do today?" asked Tessa brightly. "I thought we could go to Land's End." "Oh, come on. We're going to do the cliff walk to Port Quin." So they made their way out of Longcross, across the driveway, and onto the tiny road that followed the cliff edge down the coastline. For some reason, George found himself nervously looking over his shoulder. He was searching for Longcross silhouetted against the smudgy clouds. Each time he turned, it had shrunk a little more. Eventually the house disappeared behind the horizon as the road began a steep descent. After about 10 minutes, a sign appeared jutting out of the hedge as if it had grown there. "Coastal path, 2/3 of a mile." The pathway, if indeed there was one, was overgrown. George followed the flattened stalks of grass until he caught up with Tessa. She was scrambling down the hillside along a course that seemed far too steep. The air was very still, unbroken by gulls' cries. Even the ocean seemed silenced. It was only when he reached the bottom that George was able to look up for the first time and register the absence of the ocean. The beach was there, curving around the steep grassy bank, a wet, camel-coloured boomerang clinging to the hillside. But where the sea should have begun, the sand faded out. The sky seemed to have come down to meet it. Tessa was standing staring into the off-white cyclorama, as if she saw something other than cloud. She turned her head when she heard George approach. "Let's go and explore." "You're joking, aren't you?" "Oh, come on. It's not as if we can get lost. We can just follow our footprints back if we want to." "Tessa!" He wanted to stamp his foot and shout at her, not so much out of anger, more from the desperate fear that sat beneath it. But she was already moving, dissolving into the mist. "Tessa!" he called, before she vanished altogether. He stood there for a moment alone in the sand. He looked over his shoulder again in both directions. He couldn't even see the path they had taken down the hillside. The air was still, but it was damp and cold. "Tessa!" he called one more time. She didn't reply. There was another moment's silence. Then, because he didn't know what else to do, George found Tessa's footsteps in the wet sand and began to follow them. What was strange about the fog was how abruptly it began, as if it was a wall or a hedge. Once within it, there was nothing to see, just a blurry, vaporous brightness the colour of a dead light bulb. George kept his eyes on the ground, and also on Tessa's footprints, which were mercifully clear. Something about the light had changed. George looked up from the shell-strewn sand at his feet. He found it hard to believe what he saw. He could feel his heart thumping, hear it even, a rapid pulse fired by the terror he felt at what lay ahead of him. He had never seen such a space in his life. His first thought was, no man is supposed to see such a thing, however bizarre that was. It was as if the sea was gone, as if someone had taken it. Some celestial hand had swept down and scooped it into the heavens. The place he was in now felt boundless, but somehow contained, as if he were inside a hollow space the size of the world. It would have been too much for him to keep looking, were it not for one tiny feature a long, long way away in front of him. It was Tessa, waving that he should run out to join her. But George knew that was an impossibility. He wanted to go because she was going away from him soon, and he felt she would take his refusal to join her as a sign that he didn't love her. He did love her. He contemplated stepping out, but he knew it wasn't possible. He turned around to face the fog and retraced his steps, letting the blankness engulf him. Somehow he found himself back at Long Cross. The air was filled with a light drizzle. He zipped up his hood and walked around for a bit, staring out of the restricting oval that circled his face. The stillness was suddenly broken by the cry of a gull, and beyond it, another, subtler sound. A rushing, rolling, whooshing flush that gradually grew and grew until it became a magnificent, tumbling roar. The ocean, now released from whatever unseen force restrained it, came hurtling back, pushing the mist away, once again concealing the naked ground as it powered towards the shore. "Tessa!" He shouted her name against the roar, then turned and ran down the stone steps. A cowled shape emerged through the mist from around the corner. It reached for its hood and pulled it back. It was her. Not dead, not crushed beneath the waves. She must have walked a little further, then followed him back to the shore. "Tessa?" She smiled slightly as he ran up to her and held her tightly. She didn't talk about what had happened out there in that great, uncovered space. Tessa went to America and never came back. In some ways, George felt that she had never returned that distant day in late September off the coast of Long Cross. For many years he was haunted by the sense that he had brought about this end himself, through his own inability to stand up to his fear. It was only later in life that the truth occurred to him, when he found someone who saw the fear on his face and gently took his hand and said, "Come with me. I'll show you how to do this." And she led him easily into the wide, open space.
Are you ready to go on a journey?
Whatever shall I do?
Why do you cry out, my friend?
Here, try this.
Look into my eyes, look into the eyes, not around the eyes, don't look around the eyes, look into my eyes. You're under.
That's the first time I've heard it said that way.
So it's important for them to think you're cool, and they will think you're cool if you are what?
If you are true to yourself.
I might have known it. What a fool I was, what a blind fool.
Anything remarkable on Handler Street?
No, Mr. Holmes, nothing very particular.
Then tell me all about it.
The best drama, the best comedy,